Hello, everybody. This is Phins Fan here to talk about Week One's matchup against the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm going to get into Week Two's matchup against the Washington Commanders. So the five players I was looking at in Week One, highlighted in last week's episode, were Chop Robinson, who didn't play in this game, Quentin Bell, who had one total tackle. He didn't really show out in this game. I'm really hoping he does better in Week Two against the Commanders. Patrick Paul looked really nice for the Dolphins. Uh, he looked nimble, and that was one of my main criticisms of him going into the season. I didn't know that he was a scheme fit, but he looked nimble. He looked fast. He looked like he belonged out there at the left tackle position. So that was really encouraging to see. Next, Jalen Wright was a guy that I was really looking to see how he would show out in this game. I knew he'd get a lot of playing time, and I was right. He had 11 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. So he looked really good. He looked fast. The way he ran, he actually reminded me a lot of Aaron Jones. It was really nice to see, and it kind of gives the Dolphins another weapon in that backfield, that that increasingly crowded backfield of the Dolphins. And the last guy I was looking at was Ethan Bonner. Now, Ethan Bonner gave a big play to Michael Penix earlier in the game, but he recovered really well from that, and he looked good out there. He broke up some passes. He was very good in coverage. He is currently out of practice right now with a concussion that he sustained from that game. But either way, I like to see Ethan Bonner perform well because the Dolphins are going to need a backup cornerback on the outside. And as I said last week, Cam Smith may or may not be that guy. It's not looking promising right now, but Ethan Bonner might just be that third cornerback that they've been looking for. Now I'm going to get into Week Two's game against the Washington Commanders. There's five more players that I'm looking to see how they perform in this one. See, some of them didn't perform at all in Week One. Some of them performed really well, and I want to see if that was an aberration. I want to see if they can do it again. So number 5 on my list, yet again for the second straight week, is Chop Robinson. I do think he's going to play in this game. Now, the Dolphins got a boon this week. They got some really fantastic news when Jalen Phillips came off of the PUP list. I don't know that I was expecting it this soon. He's been posting workout videos all summer about his rehab and his process and everything. So I suppose I should have expected it, but he's back. So that just pushes everybody who was going to play edge for the Dolphins down the depth chart a little bit. So, Jalen Phillips goes to the top, and then Manuel Agba, Chop Robinson, Muhammad Kamara, Quentin Bell, they all get moved down a peg, which is perfect. That's kind of how we want it. We want more of a rotation. We want guys to be in there as situational pass rushers or being there for the run. So I'm going to be looking for Chop Robinson in this one. He's now been relegated to more of a backup role. He'll be more of a situational pass rusher, and they'll try and work him into the run as much as they can. I'm really hoping Chop Robinson plays at least a half of football in this one. I think he needs to get his feet wet in the NFL. And I think now that Jalen Phillips is back, the Dolphins can kind of let him loose a little bit. The next guy I'm looking to see how he performs in this one is Malik Washington. Now, in Week 1 against the Falcons, Malik Washington had one catch for 5 yards on 4 targets. He also had one rush for 21 yards. So take that for what it's well. Take that for what you will. But Malik Washington, I'm hoping he does better in this one. I'm hoping with Odell Beckham being out, still on the PUP list. Odell Beckham is. The Dolphins are really looking for a number 3 wide receiver, and when the Dolphins drafted Malik Washington, to me, he seemed like an ideal guy to take over in the slot for them. So, like I said, I'm hoping Malik Washington does a little bit more in this game to kind of solidify his spot on this roster, solidify his spot maybe as a slot wide receiver. Hopefully he can get some more playing time based on his performance this preseason. The next guy I'm looking for is Patrick McMorris. Now, Patrick McMorris was the Dolphins' 6th-round pick. in this past year's draft. And I wasn't a fan of the pick. Surprise, surprise, I wasn't a fan of a Dolphins draft pick, but I wasn't a fan of this pick. I didn't know who Patrick Morris was coming out of California. But in week one against the Atlanta Falcons, Patrick Morris had seven tackles. He was all over the field. He had two tackles for loss. He looked really good. He looked like he belonged. And safety is another position where depth is kind of at a premium for the Dolphins. They have Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer at the top. And then under them, you've got guys like Saron Neal and Patrick McMorris and Marcus May and Elijah Campbell. And I'm really hoping that Patrick McMorris, especially based on his week one performance, I'm really hoping that he can kind of come back and show that, again, week one wasn't an aberration. So, all right, number two, Channing Tindall. Now, Channing Tindall was the Dolphins' third-round pick 2 years ago. So he was actually their top pick in that draft. The Dolphins gave up their first and second-round picks. I believe in the Bradley Chubb trade, and maybe I think they had to give up a pick because of the tampering charges against them too. But Channing Tindall was their third-round pick. He was their top pick of the draft. He's a linebacker coming out of Georgia. Now, first two years in the league, Channing Tindall, we didn't really see much of him. So this preseason, I wasn't expecting much. So when Channing Tindall got a sack at the end of the half against the Falcons, my ears kind of perked up. And I was wondering, all right, maybe, he was a free runner on that sack. So, take that for what it's worth. But then I look at his stat line beyond that one sack. He had 5 solo tackles in that game, 6 total tackles. So maybe it wasn't an aberration. Maybe the light bulb's starting to turn on for Channing Tindall. And again, linebacker is another position where the Dolphins could use some reliable guys behind Jordan Brooks and David Long Jr. Duke Riley played a lot of snaps for the Dolphins last year, and you don't want Duke Riley playing meaningful snaps for you. You just don't. He is a special teams linebacker. He's a good locker room guy, but asking him to do anything more than special teams, especially for a prolonged period of time, which is what the Dolphins were asking him to do last year with the injury to Jerome Baker, he's going to get exposed. So a guy like Channing Tindall, who has all the athleticism in the world, you're just hoping that his instincts kind of start kicking in, start coming into play a little bit. And if they do, the Dolphins might have something in Channing Tindall because he looked really good in this game. He was all over the field when he was on the field. And the last players I'm going to be looking at in this week 2 matchup against the Washington Commanders are going to be the Dolphins' backup quarterbacks. Now, I don't know if Tua is going to play in this game. I've gone on record in saying that I don't think Tua should play at all this preseason, but I understand that Mike McDaniel might want to put him out there for a series or two. Okay, fine, understood. But the fact of the matter is, the Dolphins' backups in Skylar Thompson and Mike White, they're going to get the majority of the playing time in this game and in week 3. And frankly, week 1 against the Falcons, their performance wasn't good enough. They both looked pretty listless out there. Mike White especially, he was 4 of 14 in that game. Those are just unacceptable stats. So Mike White was 4 of 14 for 26 yards. Skylar Thompson was 8 of 19 for 95 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Neither of those stat lines inspire much confidence in us. Now, I understand how the backup quarterback situation works. I understand how the quarterback situation in general works. If you lose your top quarterback, if you lose your starting quarterback, that doesn't spell good things for the rest of your season. I understand that, but should Tua have to miss a game or two in the middle of the season, worst case scenario, if that should happen, you want a backup who can at least come in and be competent and kind of let the defense do their thing, get the ball into the hands of your playmakers, of which the Dolphins have a glut of them, and let them do their thing. But the way Skylar Thompson and Mike White performed against the Atlanta Falcons, against the second team defense of the Atlanta Falcons, it doesn't make me all that confident that they can step in and win a football game for the Dolphins, should Tua have to miss any time. So I want to see them improve. I want to see them improve against the Commanders team that traded away some pieces last season. They traded away Montez Sweat. They traded away Chase Young. They're kind of a retooling team, and it would be nice to see the Dolphins' backup quarterbacks take advantage of that a little bit. And that's really what I'm hoping for here. So, again, those are the 5 guys I'm looking for in week 2 against the Washington Commanders. After the Washington Commanders, the Dolphins have a matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. And hey, we'll see how this goes. Guys, football's almost back, and this is great. This is the most exciting time of the year where we all have hope and we all have Super Bowl dreams and aspirations. And so I'm the Philly Phins fan. Drop a nickel on that subscribe button. Like this video. Post comments if you have anything you'd like to say to me. Say to the other guys on the channel. And I will see you guys next week. Have a good day.